Hello everybody, welcome back to the Herefordshire Gardener channel. My name's Aaron. In this video today I'm going to be doing an update on my David Austin rose cuttings which were taken in June 2023. I do have some previous videos if you want to take a look at those on how I've brought them along to this stage. I've just been doing a little bit of watering this morning and I've realised in the fruit cage behind me where the cuttings are, there seems to be a few issues. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to do a video today just in case anybody else is experiencing similar issues. I'll show you what my thoughts are and how I'm going to combat that today. So I'll take you over there and we'll have a look at how everything is at the moment. I think the last video that I posted in this kitchen garden on those rose cuttings was around about February, so we're quite a few months down the line. So I hope you enjoy the video. Remember, thumbs up, it helps the channel to gain a little bit more attention on YouTube, and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy. So if I just take you over to the fruit cage, this is where all the cuttings have been stored since I prepared them in the previous videos. I think the last video we were in this section here, just tidying them up, giving them a very light spring prune. I'll bring you back over to this section in a minute and show you what I'm doing, but generally speaking, these are not rose cuttings in these large pots. These are purchased roses. I'll do some separate videos on those, but I'm just gonna take you into the rose fruit cage, temporary fruit cage for now, because there's a greenhouse going here later this year. So these are all in temporary pots, and as you can see, everything that's on this staging that I've created just so my pots didn't blow over is my own cuttings. So we've got a lot down this side. We've got a load more down here all the way to the end. All were taken in June 2023. Got some Rambling Rosie there and a load of different varieties in here. A lot of them are retired varieties, so I'm really excited that they've done amazingly well. And that I'll be getting them in the landscape hopefully later this year. So normally what I do is I just water them at the minute, maybe two to three times a week. If it rains, I lay off a little bit. But if anybody's watched my previous videos, you know that the cuttings were placed into recycled David Austin pots, so pots that I've had in the past when I've bought roses from them. I've reused them, and also just some little black pots that I had similar size myself. I used those. What I'm noticing is this year the roses are putting on a lot more growth, and I just don't think that these pots are big enough. I did say in my previous videos that I was going to see how I managed to get on first of all, because I'm hopefully going to be planting most of these out this year, so I didn't want the hassle of repotting them at this stage. It would be a lot of work, at least a day's work, but having come out this morning, I'll show you what I'm looking at. So I think this is a Teasing Georgia. Can you see on the leaf? Just let me get it into focus. Hang on a second, this is a little bit harder when you've only got one pair of hands. Hopefully we can get that to focus. There we go. Whoop. So that's what I'm noticing on a few of the roses, and that's a fungal rust disease. In my experience, it normally occurs when there's a few things causing an issue. I'll just see if I can show you some more of that fungal rose disease. So this is different to black spot, but it's still a fungal disease nonetheless, and it's not going to kill the rose, but it's not good. It's rust fungus because it literally looks like rust. It's orange, and you get these little spots appearing, but then you do get it also occurring on the underside of the leaves in sort of larger spots. That's typically where the rust fungus tends to be. So I think what I've realised, or in my opinion, these pots are too small for the roses, and they're drying out too quick, so that's putting stress on the roses. And also because I've got so many of them and I've tied them to this stage, and I just don't think there's enough airflow in this area. So I'm actually going to thin these out and put some more staging over in the garden, just for now. These are already coming into bud, so I think I've caught it in time. So a lot of the leaves, as you can see, are really, really healthy, absolutely beautiful. I think this is one of the important, well, stresses the importance really of coming and checking on your roses regularly, because, you know, if you catch things early, really, you've got a better chance of preventing things like black spot and rust fungus from spreading. I noticed this morning as well that this is the first crown princess bloom that's starting to come out. So cool. She's got so many buds. This is just one of them. I'm already counting maybe 15 to 20 buds just in the first flush, but as you can see, if you go a bit further down, they're all crown princess up to over there. Lots and lots of buds on those. So what I plan to do today, didn't really want to have to do this, but I put a lot of effort into getting these to come along. It's just worth it. I did have other jobs I wanted to do in the garden today, but I'll focus on this instead. All of the roses that are in these small pots, I'm going to pot them on into larger pots, and I'll show you those in a minute. Even if it's just for this summer, I think it will, a larger pot will hold more water, there'll be more room for the roots, more room for nutrients. Hopefully it'll give them just what they need in this next 9-month period, however long it is until I get them into the ground. And it'll just buy me that little bit more time that I need. So I've worked it out. I think I've got about 50 or 60 that are in that size pot. Fortunately, I did put some in larger pots, about the same depth but slightly larger in diameter, and they are actually doing a lot better. As you can see, they just look a lot healthier and a lot bigger and more vigorous. So I think that supports my idea that those pots are just too small and they're causing the rose a little bit of extra stress. I mean, if you look at the size of that pot there and you look how big that's gone up all the way to the top, covered in bloom buds. So yeah, fortunately I didn't have to do them all. If you're wondering why I've got tin foil wrapped around, I have done an update video on that. We get a lot of sun here. We've got full sun. Let's see if I can find where it is. Up there, comes all the way over. So this kitchen garden just is bathed in sunshine for the majority of the day. And they're black pots. And black tends to absorb heat, whereas your lighter colours tend to absorb less heat. Because they're not in the ground, I thought wrapping them in some cheap foil just from local supermarket, just a bit of sticky tape on and scrunched it together, it'll just reflect some of that heat away from those pots. And if I'm being honest, I think it's worked. The root zone's not getting overheated. I've done it even on the purchased roses. Looks a bit weird, looks a bit like we're growing roses on the moon. But it'll do for now. So yeah, I've got, what have I got? Teasing Georgia here. I think we've got Crown Princess Margarita down that side, Jeff Hamilton at the end. These are Rambling Rosie, as I said. Down there, I think we've got Heritage. And then we come into Brother Cadfael. And then I think we come into Rosa Louise Odier. Then I've got some Claire Austins here. I've got some Golden Celebrations on the end. We'll come around here. I've got some Bathshebas growing. Quite a number of those. I love this rose. I love all of them, to be honest. And then I think we get down here, and I want to say Winchester Cathedral. That's definitely Gertrude at the end. And I think in and amongst there may be a Macmillan Nurse rose. And then obviously I've got all of these around the edge, which I'm going to do some update videos on again soon. That's Tess Wedding Rose. She's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. No fragrance sadly, but she is absolutely wonderful. Got my Munstead Wood there. I've got two of those. There's another one just over there. I'm going to try not get sidetracked in this video. I want to keep it short and sweet, just so you can get an idea of what I'm doing. Everything is totally greened up. That's Constant Spry, one of David Austin's first roses that he introduced. One's flowering but beautiful. It's getting moved from there because this is all getting redone. I noticed as well I think this is Grace. She's got a very weird bloom. Sometimes you'll find with your roses that the first blooms come out a little bit deformed. There is a name for it. I think it's proliferation or something like that. Don't be too disheartened. She's got absolutely loads more blooms to come. If you're wondering what this white stuff is, it's not powdering mildew. I've not got an issue with that at present. That's residue from the sulphur rose that I sprayed on all of these roses to try and reduce fungal disease. And I've sprayed them once a month and will continue to do throughout the season. The rain, obviously, once it rains, it will wash a lot of that off, so that's why I reapply on a monthly basis. That's the other Munstead wood, which, to be honest, is not looking too bad. It's got pretty healthy foliage. I have just noticed on even this, if I zoom in, can you see that there? That's a little bit of rust fungus. So I'm going to just have to fine tooth comb through these and just remove the affected areas and get them sprayed again with the sulphur rose. Give them a good watering. I think they're probably a bit too dry as well. Yeah, they're due a water. That's one of the things that will increase the risk of fungal diseases, particularly rust and powdery mildew, is the pots being allowed to dry out too much. Look at the size of that bud. That's going to be beautiful when it comes out. So yeah, I will go through all of those hopefully today, tomorrow. I've got 2 weeks off of work, so perfect opportunity, and I think the weather's going to be beautiful. So I'm just going to bring it down into the little area that I've set up for working. I've got some Uncle Tom's Rose Tonic in there, diluted to the appropriate strength, and some sequestered iron and seaweed in there. I've just been soaking. These are another 2 Crown Princess margaritas. So what I'm actually doing is I'm untying a few from there, bringing them down here, giving them a good soak in the bucket, bit of TLC, taking off the affected leaves. I have to take off the supports again, put them to one side. I've got these buckets. I mean, they're not massive. I wouldn't recommend this as potting on a rose, but I got them for free. They're about twice the size of those. And they'll do just to cover me until the end of this year. As I said, they'll hold twice as much water in terms of soil content and nutrients. So it'll just give them, I think, the little bit of boost that they need for the rest of the year. I'm also using, we've got a lot of spare soil in the garden. I've got a pile like this and a pile down the bottom end of the garden from all the work that we've had done. At least 4 or 5 times the size of that. I don't know if I've shown you the garden in previous videos, but we've removed a lot of the hedges and we've just completely opened it up. If you've seen my previous videos, that's my rose room over there. I'm going to try and do an update video this week on that. I don't know if you can just see the darker grass. This is where the hedges used to run in the garden. Same as those hedges over there, all the way down and round and down the bottom as well. It was just too many in my opinion. Planted all these new trees. Might do you an update video on those as well in due course. And the soil is down there, so I brought it up in the wheelbarrow. The good thing about our garden soil is it's very similar to the soil in the Shropshire gardens at David Austin. It's a good clay mixture which holds water. It's perfect for growing roses. I am adding a little bit more fertiliser in the lowest part of the pot just to give them that little bit of a treat when they send their roots down. And so you can see I've done the first 2. All nice and tidy. That's one teasing Georgia. And then a Crown Princess at the back. And a bit similar to that wooden staging that I've done there, I think I'm going to run maybe 2 rows in here, or possibly even 3, including one up there, just so I can thin those out a little bit, because I think there's just too many next to each other. The greenhouse is going there later this year, so that was only ever temporary anyway. But I think there's just too many roses in one spot, if I'm being honest. They like good airflow, so it's not a good start. But you live and learn. I think as well as showing you my successes on this channel, I think I need to show you the errors and the bits that I'm learning from, so that hopefully if you have fungal disease in your roses or similar issues with your pots, you can watch this video and think, actually, do you know what, maybe that's the same issue that I've got, and maybe I need to up the pot size or thin the roses out, etc, etc. So what I'll do is I'll crack on with this today. I'll do an update video at the end when I've got the staging in and the roses are where I want them to be. I will do you an update video on all of these other roses in the much larger pots. These are purchased roses with a silver foil, and then all of those up in that corner and here are what I've removed out of the garden, where we've got the alpacas, which have now arrived. They came a week ago today and they're absolutely wonderful. I can't wait to introduce you. So I've just taken those two roses, Crown Princesses, out of the water bucket with the mixture in. Before I make a start on repotting those up, just using my time effectively, I'll come up to the rose cage. I'll just free a couple more with these scissors, and then they can be soaking while I'm potting up the those two roses that I just shown you. So as you can see, I've cleared a few there which are tied to this staging. The Crown Princess roses actually are not being that badly affected. It was only a few, to be honest, that I've seen with the rust fungus, but my roses are telling me that they're not happy. So just cut this string which is holding it to the staging and just dispose of that. I'll do the same with this one. That a little cut and just get rid of that string, and then it's just a case of carefully teasing them out. I'll be removing this foil as well and putting foil on the new pots, tidying everything up when I get down there. But I'll show you on this one roughly what I'm doing, and we'll see if there's any diseased leaves that I can show you too. So I'm just going to bring this over. I'll need to pick those scissors up because I will need them to free this rose from its supports. They've put on a lot of size, to be fair. Most of this growth is from last year. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I just want to make sure that all the effort I've put in over the last 2 years is not wasted because I haven't got the right adequate size pot. So I've got a little dirty pot, I like to call it. Might be able to see there, you can see a bit of rust fungus. I'll show you on this rose anyway. It'll definitely have stuff that needs removing. So anything that's like this, yellow leaves normally indicate nitrogen deficiency, particularly on the lower leaves. Now I know this rose has got plenty of nitrogen in its feed, so it does indicate that the soil is too dry, because without the water in the soil, the rose cannot take up the nutrients. The water, should I say, is the transport vessel. So anything that just looks unhealthy, all I'm doing is just carefully removing. And I'm just going to go around the rose and just take off anything that I think personally doesn't look healthy. I'll show you. Just spotted some rust on one of the leaves. If I take this off, I'll be able to give you a close-up. I just put it on my leg. Can you see that? Just in. Come on, focus. There we go. So that's what rust looks like. As the name suggests, it just looks like rust with a bit of black around it where the tissue's starting to die. A little bit on that leaf, and you just get it showing up in patches. but it does spread and it does tend to join. As I said, you get a little bit on the underside. So by removing this, and that's going in the garbage, in the trash can, and away with the waste disposal, not on my compost heap. I don't want to introduce that back into any part of the garden. What I'll also do is just clear any fallen leaves, because they can also harbour disease. This soil is actually quite dry. I have had other jobs to do in the last few weeks in the garden, and although I have been watering them, we've had quite a bit of rain. So I just need to up my game on the watering, I think, because it is forecast some really dry weather over the next week or so. Take off this foil, as I said, it's no longer needed. It was very cheap. I think it was like 80p a roll. So I'll just pop that in recycling. Get rid of anything like that. Once you just turn the rows around, you can see sort of yellowing. And I think the yellowing, as I said, is just because the soil medium's just too dry. So this poor rose is not managing to get the nutrients out of the soil, but that can be corrected very, very quickly. So it's an easy fix. Bit of rust on that. Focus on this camera is not brilliant. You can see the rust there on the bottom. So I tend to remove the whole leaf, because if they've got rust on one of the leaflets, like you can see just there, the chances are that fungus has already spread onto the other part of the leaf, and although it's not turned rusty yet, it probably will do in time. So good to just get rid of it. You see these leaves, the plant's taking the nutrients out of its leaves, which is why they turn yellow and then drop off. So it's basically taking nutrients out of there and sending it to the new shoot. Sorry, I've got flies on me which are irritating me. So it's really quite therapeutic, actually, just coming along. I wouldn't have had to do this had I have just kept up to the watering, but you live and learn. You know, it's not a complete disaster. The rose is actually fine. I can see on the underside of this one we've got a bit of rust, and it's important to look on both sides if you can. I can afford to be quite picky with this rose because it's in a pot, a small pot. It's easy to handle, but I can appreciate if you've got a shrub rose in your landscape, you're not going to be sat on the floor doing this, I doubt very much. In pots maybe you can, but you just do your best, and prevention is better, or part of the cure, I suppose you could say. And just tidying it up. So I tend to have a look aerially first, and all this looks pretty good, but then if you look, can you see we've got rust there? So that leaf will come off, and it might seem like you're defoliating a lot of your plant, but you're doing it a favour in the long run. It will thank you for the little bit of effort that you put in, because the health of the rose will improve. And also removing leaves, it also improves airflow. You see rust. So by improving airflow, you also allow the rose to dry out between rainstorms, and that can therefore help control fungal diseases. Just make sure that you get rid of the infected leaves. You do not want them in your garden. And just taking a few of these off. See, some of them are just looking a bit, just a bit rubbish. It looks brutal what I'm doing, but trust me, I've done it so many times. It's not an issue, really, isn't. I'll take these off. See, we've got rust there on that one. Got rust on that one too. I'll do you another update video when these have got into full bloom, because I'm going to do a rose review on Crown Princess. Such a wonderful rose. Just carefully go around your roses and check. So already I feel like she's looking a lot better. But the more you look, the more you find. if you look here, rust just in there. Looks like a bit of black spot as well. Not much on the underside with that one. I've got rust down here, look. I didn't think these was as affected as they are right now. I'm not taking all the leaves off, I'm only taking the affected ones. And it's a good opportunity to look for aphids and sawfly larvae as well, which will also stress the rose out and tend to come to roses that are stressed out, so it's like a double whammy. Not looking too bad now. I think maybe a couple more leaves and we're done with this one. Just need to repot her. One of the other things that I've been doing in these pots is just turning the rose like this, so I can actually look. See, by doing that I've just spotted another leaf that needs to come off. It just gives you a different viewpoint of the rose. I can see that one at the bottom has got rust on it. So you can see how this is going to take me a bit of time today, but hopefully it'll be worth it. I mean, as I say, this is a retired variety, so you can't purchase this one from the shops, but I've got enough of them, and I've got the main ones in the garden anyway. So just having a quick flick through there, not looking too bad now. I'll just take that one off. So happy with that. So the next step, it's a bit heavy because it's got water in the pot. It's all fully saturated, so that'll be doing it a favour already. I need to take one of these buckets, which is this one. I got these for free, as I said. Just drilled some holes in, plenty of holes for good drainage, because roses like good drainage. I just sit it in the barrow, move the fertiliser out of the way, and then what I want to do really is just pop some soil in the bottom. I don't want the rose to be too high up, because when I'm watering my roses, particularly in these pots, I need to leave a level so that when I water it doesn't just fall straight out of the pot. I can just fill it up and let it seep down. Otherwise it's really hard to get them, you know, water down into where the roots are. So that's a really good tip actually to mention. If you are putting roses in pots, make sure you leave a gap at the top of all of your pots. You know, a good sort of inch at least, so that you can top that up with water with a hose pipe or with a watering can, and let it just seep down into the medium, and then top it back up again. And you might do that 3 or 4 times, so that you know that the full mixture inside is wet. You'll see water coming out of the bottom. That doesn't always mean that your rose is fully watered. You know, water can track down the sides of your pots and come out the bottom, and you might think, oh brilliant, completely wet through, but that's not often the case. So just make sure you water adequately. You don't need to water every day. If you do it properly, particularly in larger pots, you might only need watering once a week, depending on the weather. You don't want to love your plants too much and drown them. Happens a lot that with house plants. People just overwater them. So yeah, just put enough in there. Ideally these would be bigger pots and there'd be a lot more soil underneath, but I've got to work with what I got. And just take a little handful of this and just mix it in like so. Just put a little bit more soil on top of that, and then what I'll do next is I'll cut the strings which are supporting a lot of the long canes on this that are tied to that willow support. I'll then remove the elasticated band from the bottom and take the stakes out and put them to one side. I'll then lift that out very carefully, pop it into that pot, and I'll backfill with that clay mixture all around the sides, with it being a square pot, making sure that I leave a reasonable lip at the top of the pot. And then I'll put the elastic stretchy band back on the outside of that pot, put the sticks back in, and then retie it. and that's done. Put the label back in. I'm using my new markers. Somebody recommended them online. It's an Artline garden marker. They're really good for plant labels. Apparently I've only started using them this year. I used to use Sharpies, which some of you might already use, but Sharpies fade. If you look, that Crown Princess Margarita is still on there, CPM, but that's only because she's been lower down in the soil. The ones with the labels sticking right up, the sun's just bleached them, and I know what they are because I can read the faded part of my writing, but that's why I bought these, just to re-go over it. So I think it's important that you don't lose your labels. You don't want to be in a situation down the line where you're thinking, gosh, who is that? So I'll sort Crown Princess out, and then I'll show you this particular rose when I'm done. And this is the finished pot. So I've put the band back on the new pot, put the willow supports back in, and then what I've done at intervals is just tied the rose, the main canes, into the frame, just with some gardening twine. Soft, because I don't want it to damage the stems, so when I don't put it on really tight, you can see there. And I've just gone for sort of an open frame, so I think there's about 3 or 4 main stems on this one, and I've just opened them outwards just to provide good airflow in the center. And I'm hoping that now that's in there already at the top, that'll just be a little bit happier this season. Ideally, roses, if you're leaving them in pots, they need to be in something that's at least 40 centimeters diameter, which that isn't. That's probably only about 25, if that. So make sure the bigger the pot, the better, really, and nice deep pots, because they like to send down tap roots. So these are not what I would recommend for potting on roses, or putting roses in pots, should I say. I'm only putting them in here because this is a temporary measure, because they're going in this bed later on in this season where the fence is. It's all getting replaced. So yeah, that's what I'm doing this afternoon. It's an absolute belter weather-wise here today. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. This is quite a nice shaded part of the garden because of the trees up there behind the shed. The sun will come over there in the evening, so that gets full sun over there all day. I might build some more staging, like those wooden stakes with the wood across down here, and just actually stage these more in the shade, because they've got plenty of overhead light, which is all that they need, and they get sun on this area until around about now, which is coming up to lunchtime. I don't know, we'll see. I definitely want to place some down here because they're totally overcrowded in that rose cage. So I've just got myself a little system going now, so that's been potted up. I've just potted that one up. I've got 2 soaking in the bucket. I'll bring another 2 over in a minute and pop them to one side, and then I'm just rotating again, collect some more soil from the bottom of the garden in a moment. This Crown Princess is definitely gonna open in the next few days. Again, if you see any of that white stuff, that's not powdery mildew, just for your information. That's sulphur rose, which is a powder. You mix it with water and it does actually stop black spot. And I think it's worked pretty well this year, considering that these roses have been quite stressed. I've had to remove a few leaves because of that fungus, rust fungus. But on the whole, they're looking a bit dry, but they'll fill out. Just noticed there, look, green fly, you see that? What you want to do there is you want to just tap them off or rinse them off with a hose. Once they're off the rose, they can't get back on, so by tapping them you can stop them drinking the sap out of the rose stems and the buds, and it'll just help them to be healthy. Just be careful with your rose buds that you don't knock them off, but what I tend to do is just a little flick job, and as you can see, clear. If there's any stragglers on the leaves, just knock them off, and just give the foliage that you've knocked them onto the floor just a little wag, just to stop the green fly from coming back onto the rose, but I was showing you this. She's opening up quite nice. She's already got a fragrance, but she's so pretty. Look at that. Get that to focus. Gorgeous. I can't wait to show you her when she's fully open. I'm gonna wait to do the rose review until we got more blooms and they're starting to show a bit more vigor. Anyway, I'm gonna get on with sorting out all of these roses. It's probably going to take me most of today, but it's okay. As I said, I'm on annual leave. I'm going to try and spread them out a bit more, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end when I'm finished. So I've looked at putting some staging in down here using those stakes there, very similar to the one up at the top, but actually if I'm going to put them down here on the grass is going to grow, and so if I tie them in, it's going to mean having to cut the string every time I need to mow that grass, otherwise it's going to grow up like this, look, around the pots. As you can see, bit of a mess. This is easy to tidy up though, because I can pull these pots out of the way and just mow over that. I'm not too fussed about this lawn at the moment because, to be honest, this whole section, this whole kitchen garden is getting redone this year, so I'm not trying to make it look pretty. But for ease of being able to mow the grass so it doesn't choke the roses out, what I'm going to do is I've just staged my crown princesses like this. Ignore this one, it's a Jeff Hamilton. But all of these here are crown princesses. I think there's 17 in total. I've got 2 more to pot up. But as you can see now, they've got more room around each rose. I've taken off any infected leaves. Hopefully they'll do a lot better here as well, because it does receive a little bit more shade. It's still pretty much full sun most of the day, but it's not, as you can see up there, they're still in the sun. Down here we've got some shade from the trees behind us. All I've got is 2 of those pots of leaves out of the whole of these roses, so they weren't that affected, but nonetheless I needed to get on top of this today. Once I spotted it, I was like, oh god, it's a good job I did. And I think as well, this will just make watering these a bit easier. I've dunked every single one of them today in the bucket with sequestered iron and seaweed and Uncle Tom's rose tonic, diluted according to the instructions. So they've all had a really good long root soak, so I think the soil's well saturated. And then of course what I've done is I've added extra garden soil all the way around, as I mentioned earlier. I think one of the crown princess which I showed you earlier, I'm just trying to remember where I placed it. Oh, there it is. If you look, she'll probably be out this week. She's well on her way. Already has a lovely fruity scent, really strong. It's Crown Princess Margarita, but that's her maiden bloom. And there's a lot of buds on all of these, so pretty soon they will flush right out and they'll look a lot fuller. I'm just moving on to my Jeff Hamiltons now, which is in that pot there. I've just got to tidy them a little bit. You can see that pot's smaller than those. It's near on size with those, but slightly bigger. I'm debating whether to up pot them out of those into these. The more I look at it now, the more I think maybe. But they're not looking too bad though, so I don't know. I need to double check that I've got enough of these pots as well. So yeah, that's where I've got up to. It takes a lot longer than you'd think really, just to give them a real good clean. Must have been out all sort of morning and afternoon, late morning should I say. I think what's left in that cage is probably easily another 35, 40 plus roses to go through. It's just got to be done, I think, just for the health of the roses. So I've got time anyway, so I'll crack through it over this next couple of weeks, and we'll see you back in another video when they're all in bloom. I can do a bit of a rose review on each one. Thanks again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today. Remember, like and subscribe for more content. Thanks a lot for watching. Take care. Bye.